The doorbell rang at exactly 8:12 p.m., sharp and urgent, cutting through the quiet of a small, suburban house where a single dad stood frozen in his kitchen, staring at his phone, knowing with terrifying certainty that the woman on his porch was his boss, and that she was there because of a message that was never meant for her eyes. Before we go any further, if stories about unexpected moments, human connection, and kindness touching lives in surprising ways speak to you, take a second to subscribe to Kindness Tales, like this video, and let us know in the comments what you think as the story unfolds. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need them. He hadn't always been this anxious. There was a time when life felt predictable. Wake up early, make breakfast, pack a lunch, drive to work, pick up his daughter from school, help with homework, repeat since his wife passed away 3 years earlier. After a sudden illness, routine had become his lifeline. It was the one thing that kept the grief from swallowing him whole. As long as he stuck to the schedule, he could function. He could be strong. He could be enough. He lived in a modest blue house at the end of a quiet street, the kind of place where neighbors waved but didn't pry. Inside, the walls were decorated with crayon drawings, school photos taped slightly crooked, and a calendar on the fridge marked with soccer practice, dentist appointments, and work deadlines written in careful black ink. His world revolved around his 6-year-old daughter, a bright, curious girl who still believed her dad could fix anything, from broken toys to bad dreams. Work was the other pillar holding him upright. He had a steady job at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. Nothing flashy but reliable. His boss was known around the office as tough but fair. She ran meetings with precision, expected deadlines to be met, and didn't tolerate excuses. At the same time, she remembered birthdays, asked about people's families, and quietly covered shifts when someone had a sick kid. To him, she was intimidating, impressive, and firmly off limits in every possible way. That was why the message felt like a bomb going off in his pocket earlier that evening. It had been one of those days that piled stress on stress. His daughter had woken up with a mild fever, not enough to keep her home from school, but enough to make him worry all day. A project deadline loomed, and his inbox was filled with emails that all seemed marked urgent. By the time he finally got home, his brain was running on fumes. He put his daughter to bed early, reading her favorite book twice because she asked, then once more because he didn't have the heart to say no. When she finally drifted off, clutching her stuffed rabbit, he sat on the edge of her bed for a long moment, listening to her breathe, letting the quiet settle. Back in the kitchen, he reheated leftovers and checked his phone. There was a text from his boss asking if he could confirm attendance for an early meeting the next morning. Simple enough. He typed a quick reply, or at least he thought he did. At the same time, another message draft sat open, meant for his best friend, a co-worker he trusted completely. Earlier, they'd been joking about how his boss seemed extra put together that day. Her hair perfect, her smile disarming. It was harmless, half-exhausted banter, the kind people vent with when the workday is over. His thumbs moved automatically. Autocorrect did the rest. When he hit send, he didn't notice the mistake right away. It wasn't until his phone buzzed again, this time with a read receipt, that his stomach dropped. He looked down and felt the blood drain from his face. The message had gone to his boss, not the neutral confirmation about the meeting. The other one, the flirty, poorly worded, completely inappropriate text that suggested he'd noticed her smile and that it had distracted him more than it should have. For a split second he hoped he was wrong. He checked the contact name again. His hands shook. It was unmistakable. Panic surged through him. He typed, deleted, retyped, trying to explain, to apologize, to undo the impossible. Every attempt sounded worse than the last. Finally, he sent a short, desperate apology, explaining it was meant for someone else, that he was embarrassed, that he hoped it wouldn't affect work. The typing indicator appeared, then disappeared. Minutes passed, no reply. He barely slept that night. His mind ran through every worst-case scenario. Being fired, being reported, losing the job that paid the mortgage and kept the lights on, letting his daughter down. The shame was almost physical, a heavy weight on his chest. The next morning at work, his boss acted normal, polite, professional, no mention of the text. The meeting went on as scheduled. She asked for updates, nodded, took notes. If anything, she seemed quieter than usual, but that could have been his imagination. All day he waited for the other shoe to drop. It didn't. That evening, he picked up his daughter from after-school care, made dinner, helped her practice spelling words. He was just starting to relax when the doorbell rang. And now he stood there, staring at the door, heart pounding, knowing exactly who it was. He opened it slowly. She stood on the porch holding a small paper bag, her expression unreadable but not angry. The porch light cast soft shadows, and for the first time, she didn't look like a boss or a professional figure. She looked like a person who had driven across town with something important on her mind. She spoke first, saying she hoped it wasn't too late, that she didn't want to intrude. He stammered, apologizing again, words tumbling over each other. He offered to explain, to take responsibility, to accept whatever consequences came next. She listened without interrupting, then surprised him by smiling gently and holding up the bag. Inside were 2 cupcakes from a bakery near the office. She said she'd noticed he'd been distracted lately and guessed there was more going on than he let on. She mentioned seeing the photo of his daughter on his desk, the one with the missing front tooth and the gap-toothed grin. She explained that the message had startled her at first. Yes, but something about his immediate panic, the way he tried so hard to fix it, told her this wasn't arrogance or disrespect. It was exhaustion. It was a man stretched thin. They sat at the small kitchen table while his daughter slept down the hall. He told her things he rarely said out loud, about losing his wife, about learning how to braid hair from YouTube videos, about pretending to be strong when he felt like he was barely holding together. She shared her own quiet struggles, how she'd built a career to avoid dealing with loneliness, how leadership could feel isolating, how kindness at the wrong moment might be mistaken for weakness. There was no flirtation, no awkwardness, just 2 adults having an honest conversation neither of them had known they needed. Before she left, she told him something that stayed with him long after the door closed. She said mistakes don't define people. How they respond to them does. She told him his job was safe, not because she was doing him a favor, but because his work and character had already proven his worth. The next weeks felt lighter. At work there was a new ease, a quiet understanding. At home, he found himself smiling more, laughing with his daughter without that constant knot of fear in his stomach. He realized that night hadn't just been about an embarrassing text. It had been about being seen. Sometimes kindness doesn't arrive wrapped the way we expect. Sometimes it rings the doorbell when we're at our lowest, reminding us that compassion can grow out of awkward moments, that grace can follow our biggest mistakes. In the end, what stayed with him wasn't the panic or the shame, but the reminder that empathy has the power to change the direction of a life. One honest conversation, one act of understanding, one choice to see the human behind the error. If this story moved you, let it be a reminder to pause before judging, to lead with kindness when it's easier to walk away. You never know what someone is carrying beneath the surface. And if you have a moment where kindness made a difference in your own life, share it in the comments. Those stories have a way of reaching exactly the right person at exactly the right time.